Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross.
And I'm Dan Ream, and I am a skeptical consumer.
Oh. Okay, that fits very well.
And I'm also the head interviewer here, a little bit of a flip. So I have in front of me someone who has got his hands on the new player handbook and has done a deep dive for maybe a very fast skip the rock across the surface dive. We'll find out. And he's going to convince me or not that I should buy it.
Okay, that's fair enough.
All right. So yes, the mystery guest is in fact Tom. So
hello, everybody.
I'm interviewing him today. So, all right, I'll just jump right into it. Why should I care that Wizards of the Coast has released yet another rule book and called it D&D 1? Is that what it's called now?
Is that what it's called? I think that's a good question. I don't know.
It doesn't say really in the book, does it?
No, it doesn't say that in the book. So I think D&D 1 is what they were calling it in creation.
Okay.
And so, I don't know, I've been calling it the 2024 Player's Handbook or the 24 Player's Handbook. Some people are calling it 3.5 or 5.5.
5.5,
like they did in the 3.5.
Okay.
Well, why should you care? Why should you buy this? Well, Dan, because all the cool kids are doing that. I think that's the...
because I'm part of a D&D podcast.
No, honestly, though, I can't wait to transfer games over to this, to be honest with you. So I did a cursory look at the book, and then I thought, what better way to really kind of dive into the book than creating a character?
Okay.
So I created two characters out of the 24 book. I've not played out of the book yet. I've not played the characters like out of here, so that aspect I don't know. The other thing I'm not super good at, and I know you are, is I don't know what the old player handbook says anymore. Oh. Like I don't remember those things. Those details are important to me in the moment, and then my brain just lets it go. And so there are a lot of things in here that I look at and I'm like, is that the same? Is it different? and so nonetheless, but I think there are a lot of cool things that are in this player's handbook. I just want to start by saying the art itself is just like a lot of the D&D books that we've become accustomed to. The art is just phenomenal. Some things that I really like is they really tapped in and paid homage to a lot of D&D stories that I want to say are old and past, but they're old and just not past.
They're tapping into the lore of D&D.
That's really the best way to put it. Like, for example, they've got some Dragonlance images in here.
Nice.
There's a picture that I'm actually just happen to be sitting on it right now that is the D&D cartoon characters, but grown up. And so you've got the whole crew here. Looks like they're entering a temple, and the little unicorn uni is not in the picture, except he is, because he's on the side of the temple in like an inscription.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of cool. And there's one in here that I had to kind of look up. I was like, I think I know these characters, but I don't remember where from. They are the AD&D action figures, like Warduke and the other names are escaping me. But so those are in here as well. Another cool thing about the art is at the beginning of every class, sorcerer, ranger, fighter, they do a full page image of that class.
Okay.
Just a picture of a character that is, the fighter or the warlock. I just think that's really cool. It's just a nice touch. I always think art is inspiring, and so I really like that part of it. If that doesn't convince you to buy it, because it is just art, you can probably look it up online and find it someplace else. The organization of the book is, in my mind, when I created those characters, it is really, really well organized.
Okay.
And I'll take the first two chapters as an example. Chapter 1 goes over all of the how you play the game. Combat, all the different steps of combat or things you can do in combat is in that first chapter. Very quick to find. Some other things that are in that first chapter, I'm looking at the table of contents, which is really a well put together table of contents, by the way. It talks about actions, the bonus actions, reactions, exploration, and how to use vision and light. There's the order of combat, damage, and healing is discussed. So really, the meat and bones of the game are right there in that first chapter of play.
Hmm.
Second chapter, then, how do I make a character? Now, I will say in the 2014 book, they have that at the very beginning of the book of step-by-step how to play. But there was a ton of like going back to this and then coming back to the front and then going back to the, and while this one still does that, I don't know how you get away from that. What I do like about this book is when it says you need to go back to the backgrounds, it'll give you a page number, and there are places where it says, hold your horses, we'll get back to that. But so keep backgrounds in your mind and let's move on to the next thing, and then you can go there.
I still can't find feats in the 2014 book. I know it's there, but I passed by it 4 times. I could just put a post-it, but that'd be too easy.
It's funny you say that because I find that's still the case with this one.
Oh, no.
I'm flipping all over the place for it. And the funny thing is, in the 2014 book, how many times have we gone into that book and used that book? And I always struggled. Was it after equipment or right before equipment? I don't remember.
That's all kind of
similar situation here. The thing I think about feats is it's a really important part of the game, but it's a very small part of the book. So I think it's really easy to flip by,
right?
Which is why my big problem with this one. It's not a flaw in the book. I think it's just the nature of the beast and how feats work, and that it's not a huge chapter. It's a tiny little chapter, but like we said, an important one. So I don't know if that helps convince you or makes you say, okay, I'm intrigued, that take a look at the book.
Yeah. And so just a follow up to that then, and you've been heading this direction as you should. What's the best part of the new book, would you say? Or parts?
I'm going to start with the rules glossary. So in the 2014 editions, if you wanted to find grappling, or you wanted to find, I don't know, just another random rule, they're escaping me, but it's really easy now to find those rules because they're at the very back in a glossary and in alphabetical order. So you do need to know what it's called, what you're looking up is called to be able to find it. But all of these are back here in, I can't find it. Here it is. The rules glossary is Appendix C. I have not thought of a rule and gone back here and it not be here.
Nice. Okay.
Which is kind of nice. I'm sure they are. And I'm if everything was here, there'd be no need for the Dungeon Master's Guide, which I'm excited for that to come out based on the things that they said. If the organization in the Player's Handbook is anything in the realm of the organization of the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think people are really going to like it. It's not going to be a book that's going to sit on the shelves. At least that's what I'm hoping.
That would be good. I like the Dungeon Master Guide. I've never quite gone reflective enough to figure out why I don't look at it more. Every time I open it up, there's cool stuff, but somehow
it's real nichey. I feel like when we had the possibility in one of our adventures to do underwater battle, I went to the Dungeon Master's Guide for that. And it's like a paragraph in that entire book, but that was the only place to find that information on underwater battle. So it's little things like that I feel like the Dungeon Master's Guide has been good for in 5th edition and actually going back to 1st edition. So hopefully the one that's going to come out is going to be more utility for a dungeon master and have more things that I would want to have that book by my side. Right now, I can really be DM with this Player's Handbook. And I guess that's not a problem. It's just kind of, why do I need all 3 rule books?
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to give you an example of where you would have to jump around in other books with this rules glossary, where now it's all here. So area of effect is a spell effect, and that is back in spells. Okay? So you'd have to go back there. If you wanted to find out more information about armor class, then you'd have to go to the beginning of the 2014 book, or beginning or middle or around equipment, somewhere in there. But again, the fact that I can't tell you exactly where it is the problem.
Right.
We've talked about this with these books before. Usually it's been in the context of which book is this information? Is it Xanathar's? Is it Tasha's? Is it Player's Handbook? Right. But even within each of those books, it's like, where am I going to find it in this book? This rules glossary really, I think, is going to save a lot of people, players and DMs alike, a ton of time in like, oh, how does that rule work from like long jump? I never remember how long jump works. It's in here as long jump.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of the things that I think is the best part of this book. Something else that I will mention about it is let's talk about the feats. I think the feats are really cool. And I'm going to cheat here and look at the table of contents to find the feats just really fast. I mean, it is a 10-page chapter in this book, page 198 to 210.
Okay.
So it is super small, and that's why we fly by it really easily.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that I think is really cool about feats. They've broken down feats into categories. And so you have origin feats. Those are feats that you get for certain classes and certain races or species. That's a change, race to species, where you get a feat at first level, where you choose from the origin feats because they're your beginning feats. They're like things you learned early as a character or before you became an adventurer. And so you have things in origin feats like lucky or healer, crafter, musician, skilled, which is cool. You get extra skills, proficiencies by taking a skilled feat. And again, some of these might already be in 2014 Player's Handbook. I don't know them that well because I usually took skill improvements rather than feats.
Right.
So it was kind of something that I didn't use a whole bunch. But so it goes from those or origin feats to basically then general feats, chef, charger, athlete, crossbow, expert, crusher, durable, or an example of those. Then from there, it goes to fighting style feats is in here. And then I think there's, epic boon feats. So they've got categories in there. One feat that I want to talk about that really drew my attention to the feats when I was creating my Ranger is, I believe Ranger gets this as a class feature. It's called Weapon Master. And I think that there's a mastery feat in the 2014 edition, and I don't remember how exactly that works. But in the 2024 book, when you gain that Weapon Master, you basically have trained with weapons that allows you to use the mastery property of one kind of simple or martial weapon of your choice, provided that you have proficiency with it. And then whenever you finish a long rest, you can change the kind of weapon that you want to use to be eligible to use the mastery. I think that's kind of cool. So what are these mastery items? The mastery properties of these weapons, because I think this is new.
I think so. I think you were telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm just looking for where the equipment is. Give me 1 second. Again, still navigating. It's new enough. I'm still navigating the book. And so when you go to weapons, the weapons table in the new book, it's 215. There is the name of the weapon, the damage, the properties. You got the weight and the cost. But over there on that right-hand side where weight and cost are is now a mastery column. And so every weapon in here has a mastery property. A little off kilter today, Dan, a little off kilter. Anyway, I get cleave. So then I can use the cleave property, which is if you hit a creature with a melee attack roll using this weapon, you can make a melee attack roll with the weapon against the second creature within 5 feet of the first that is also within your reach. On a hit, the second creature takes the weapon's damage, but you don't add your ability modifier to that damage unless the modifier is negative. You can make this an extra attack only once per turn, which to me has always made sense. Now, cleave was a feat, I think in 3.5.
Okay.
Didn't work quite like this. But I think that's a really cool aspect. Some of the other things that are like there's slow, and this is with a light crossbow, has the mastery of slow. So if you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to it, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. Getting hit by a crossbow is going to take you back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I just think about even in films, Lord of the Rings, when creatures or people are hit by an arrow, they take a step back. They're on their heels.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense that would be a property. If I'm a master of a bow and I hit somebody, it slows them a little bit. I just think that's a really cool feature to this. I keep wanting to say addition. It's not an addition. It's just this version of the Player's Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two of my favorite things that I've come across so far.
So going the opposite direction then, is there anything you came across that's the worst?
Well, to me, the obvious is the price.
Okay.
There's not much, there's not much you can do about it. And I'm sure publishing has gone up. The cost of materials has gone up. People need raises. People need to make, the writers, the artists need to make a living. So it's, when you talk about retail $70 a book, it's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Now to someone like you or I, adults, we're well into our careers. We have dispensable income, or some of us have dispensable income. $70 is something we can absorb.
Yeah.
I think about young players, like our teenagers in game clubs, even college students who want to move to this. Buying the actual physical book is a blow to the budget. But that's not the only thing that's wrong, but that's the first thing that comes to mind is just being able to acquire it. If you have D&D Beyond, it's considerably cheaper. I don't remember. It's either, the price point I think is either $29 or I think it's $29 price point, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But it is less expensive than this. The thing that is worse about this is that it is compatible with the 2014 book. You can play this, you can play 2014 characters, you can play 2024 characters in the same game. It's the same stuff. But when I was making those characters, I'm pretty sure if you blended the game between 2014 rule set and 2024 rule set, those 24 characters are going to be more powerful quicker.
I see.
I do think, again, having not played and having not leveled up characters yet, I think they've really tried to. We talked about this maybe a year and a half ago or so. There was that research of how far do players play characters, and usually like the top, they'll play till third or fourth level and then they drop the character and they go to a new one. And then they found that like the amount of time it takes to get through like those middle levels, 3, 4, 5, is like it's so frustrating because the experience level is so high, but you're still fighting characters that have, CRs 2 and 3 that don't add up real fast.
Okay.
I think this is trying to solve that.
I see.
I think you're getting powerful quicker in the 24 book. I'll be curious when we start playing this to see what will happen. I don't know that I would play these blended, and that's just my opinion. And that's just from I take that back. I did play my character doing a DM-less adventure in Game Club last week. The kids that I was playing with had pre-made characters from the 14 book. And I was playing with one of my 2024 characters. I just felt my guy had more chance to hit. And when I hit, I was doing more damage. They were level 2. I was level 1. So I don't know. They're again, in rules, they're compatible. I don't know in play that they are. And that's not the fault of Wizards. That's not the fault of the people who created the books. It's just the nature of the improvement of the game. And note that I use the word improvement. I do believe the 24 Player's Handbook is an improvement.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's a pretty good observation and I think something that people would want to know is, how do the characters stack up if they're supposed to be interchangeable?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know that that's a flaw. That might have been a choice on their part, like you said.
Absolutely. And I'll be curious as people get into the 24 book and start making those characters, if they do play in a game where the DM says, hey, if you're going to play a 24 character, everything has to be the 24 book. You can't blend 2014 stuff and 2024 stuff. I think that would break it, to be honest with you. But I'm curious, as we start moving into more people using the 2024 book and maybe playing in games with 2014 characters, really that's all just my impression. But in reality, boots on the ground, characters playing and going up in level together, I'll be curious to see how those characters advance together, whether one gets more powerful quicker.
Yeah. So leading into the last question then, will it make the game better?
So I already used that term improvement. I think so. I think as we get into the other core rule books, the Dungeon Master's Guide, but I think especially the Monster Manual. I mentioned, I think these 24 characters that we are making are going to be a little bit more powerful and advance a little faster. I think we're going to see when the 24 Monster Manual comes out. My guess is those monsters will be a little tougher or have more skills or things that these characters have. Like I said, when I made my ranger, he starts with a feat. And because he's human, oh, by the way, being a human is not going to be a downfall any longer. I've always felt like I never want to play a human with the 2014 book, because besides the vision, seeing in the dark, there's other things that other characters are getting that are really cool that I'm like, the human doesn't get any of that. Yeah, I get extra. Well, what did we get? Extra abilities, I think, like increases or something like that.
Ability increases, and I think maybe naturally maybe some more proficiencies, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, who played a human back then? So I made human characters, and you get a feat, or you get extra skills, or something like it's a boon. I mean, to play a human. Now you still have the vision problem, and you're going to have torches or lanterns or a drift globe or something like that. So my first level ranger, I have. This is a human thing. You're resourceful. So you gain heroic inspiration every long rest. That's cool. That's an extra reroll every game session. If you do a long rest in a game session, that's 2 extra rolls in your game session.
Okay.
Because all humans have that. That's a human feat. But I get the feat. I took the feat Savage Attacker. Once per turn, when you hit a target with a weapon, roll the damage twice and take the higher roll, which I think is in the 2014, but I don't know that you got that at first level.
No. Well, variant human is what they were calling it, where you, instead of taking the score increases, you could take a feat.
That's right. Okay, so you might have had that. I also get spell casting as a ranger at first level. I'm not sure if that's something that rangers at that level
I don't
got.
think so. I think you had to wait.
I get my favorite enemy, and now favorite enemy gives me the Hunter's Mark. So favorite enemy, I may cast Hunter's Mark 2 times every long rest without using spell slot. I think that mechanic is a little different than the old one. I'm just trying to think. Marcus plays a ranger.
Right.
And I felt like he was using Hunter's Mark pretty much at will, but maybe not. He's really efficient with that stuff. So
yeah.
And then I get the weapon mastery. So that's a lot. To me, that's a lot of stuff at first level. Still the regular hit points. I have my max hit points at first level was 11 because I had a +1 on my constitution, so it's a D10. That didn't change. My proficiency bonus is a +2 still. That's not any different. They really encourage the standard array in this, which I think is cool. I really think the standard array, it makes heroes but not overpowered heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've always been of the belief when making a character that I'm not making a commoner. I'm making a character who's going to be a hero. So there's some reason why. Either his intellect, either his wisdom, he's really strong, he's extra quick. But not everybody is a 16, 17, 18 abilities. I mean, that's like a mythical hero or something like that. And so I like standard array because it really balances things with amongst the players.
Part of the fun is watching those numbers pop up when you're rolling up a character, but I do think an interest, I suppose, in fairness.
Yeah, and I was looking to see here where they talk about that. Sorry, the flipping of the pages here while we're talking. But they give several ways. They got standard array, then you have random generation. Roll 4 6-siders, record the total of the highest 3. So there's 5 more times, so you have the 6 numbers. That's one. I think this was in the old one as well. Point cost. You have 27 points to spend on your ability scores. You can distribute them any way you want. I don't think you can give yourself anything over an 18 on that. So they give some, I like that they give some other ways than just rolling dice for that. Although you're right, it is fun to roll the dice.
Right.
Probably the last thing I want to mention on this is I thought it was a cool thing, and this is especially because we play Dungeons and Dragons with students, and a lot of times they want to make their own characters and all that kind of stuff, which is great. This has a chart right at the very beginning on the first page of creating a character. There's a chart that's called Class Overview. They give you the list of classes. Then they say, this character likes, Barbarian likes battle. The Bard likes performing. Cleric likes gods. Druid likes nature. Monk likes unarmed combat. And so they give you some like impression of like, what does this class like to do? Then they give you the primary ability, which it's nice to have them all in one place here on a table. But this is the part that I wanted to mention, was then they give complexity of playing that class.
Oh, okay.
So they say, you know, a barbarian is average complexity. A bard would be high complexity. And then a fighter is low complexity. So that when, you know, if we know we have a brand new student to Dungeons and Dragons, never played, they're just excited about the role playing with friends, we could then say, hey, why don't you consider these classes? It'll be a great introduction to the game.
Right.
Whereas if it's a student that's like, I know what I'm doing, you can play any of those then. You know, just be aware that you might need some extra help with bards, druids. They also call the monk high complexity, sorcerer and warlock are high complexity. The wizard is the one that's with the average complexity, which I thought sorcerers were always the easiest to play.
Yeah.
But I've never played any of them, so
well,
I can't say.
Once you get up a couple levels, then they've got sorcery points, and that gets kind of tricky.
That's true. So neat table there at the beginning, especially when you're trying to guide some young players.
All right.
So there you go.
Right. Well, that's a good sales pitch, I think. Telling the good, the bad, all of it. That gives me a little more understanding as I scrape my pennies together before I can afford the
right. Yeah, it is. I mean, in books and book prices today, it's worth the money. It's just sometimes difficult to swallow that. I'm playing a game and I'm paying $70 for a book.
Right.
But it is worth every penny of it, in my opinion. So I'd be curious to know what other people who've picked up the Player's Handbook for the 2024 edition, what their thoughts are. What those of you listening, what do you think about the book if you picked it up? Does this convince you to pick it up if you have not done so already? Leave us a comment, either here on Spotify, if you're listening on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment there. Or you can send us an email if you've got a long description, teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com, or you can always hop onto social media. Facebook and Instagram is Teachers in the Dungeon, and Twitter is @DungeonTeachers. So let us know what your thoughts are on the new one. The new Dungeon Master's Guide comes out, I believe, in October or November. Nice. So it's not too far away. We'll be able to have a conversation like this in the not too far distant future. So
good.
Maybe we'll turn the tables and I'll interview you about the Dungeon Master's Guide, perhaps.
If I
we'll find a way to
get the money. Yes.
I know. To knock two of these out in the same quarter of a year, now that's brutal.
Yes. And you got a kid in college. Definitely.
All righty. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We're Teachers in the Dungeon. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s. See you later, folks.